Catch your breath.
Well, I'm trying to be honest with my feelings.
The neck and the mouth area.
Ready? Now, wait, I want to do a challenge. No, please. No, no. Ready? Go.
Oh, so you just match it. Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't tell you what the English use is.
There are a lot of different symbols. And there are a lot of different ways to make it work.
What, half an hour, 45 minutes trying to figure out that police thing. And it reads me the English part. Well, I know the English. I struggle with reading them when I come in. And I can make it sound any way I want, but I don't know, because that's where people get accents. That's right. And so I don't really want to have an accent when I speak. Carol says, not bad, only two. You did it that right? Oh, I can't get this. Oh, no. Where some of it's gonna get. I'm a little sick. I'm a little sick. I thought about that, because I had to do the same thing when I started programming. No, I didn't.
Oh, no.
Fortran and all that stuff, and it's like, well, how do you learn this stuff? But it's kind of like you just go through it, and then.
That's
I found with this is you can save those. File. You can see them anytime you want. And we have one of the lesson 3. So long to memorize. Oh, me too. I think I worked on the outlet for 5 years. I still did.
Oh, you're welcome. Have you been looking at any of the Torah in Hebrew? Have you?
And trying to go through that. Or, on Tuesday
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and I've been trying to. Psalm 37 or Genesis 37.
Okay. Yep.
That's slow, but I do know that some of the stuff sticks.
Yeah, it certainly does. It will.
Okay, yes. It's fun.
Got the first letter right, and you're Steve?
Yes.
You got the first letter right too.
So bad.
That's okay.
I was sitting there, the only second Rose I've ever met. Now it's like calling on one.
Well, if it helps, I answered a hey you too.
Hey, you have it here? Yes, dear, you're fine.
I don't ever hear that, so I don't know.
You guys got it? Yeah. Great, I'll see if there's any more plates.
Ready for daylight savings in the week? Just whenever waking up in the morning was starting to be cool again, right?
Clocks change back for daylight savings time. Well, Great Britain does it a week before. We observe.
Again,
I get the money.
guys wanna play? You got pizza, but you're not gonna eat it?
We already ate the first box.
Oh, okay. Like, no one's eating pizza? What's going on here? I guess we're late to the game.
Well, we wouldn't have, except that we were so early, we were sitting out in the parking lot alone and it smelled so good.
And they just drove up and they started eating fast.
Makes sense.
I go down and see what is he?
Didn't say that.
Yeah, but I can hear you saying that.
I can tell I'm outnumbered.
Mm.
Thanks for bringing it. You're welcome.
You like to know.
Very good one these days.
Tell me the other word you said, with, asa. And you said ba'a, right? To create
Bana,
bana. And
Or so
what was
it'd be-
the other word?
bana, to create.
But only
Um,
God can do bana.
And then asa is, he made or he did. Good. It's getting pretty boring.
Brought up before.
And I hear M, and it says it's an M, and I'm like, it's an N, oh, it's an M.
Sorry, did that answer your question? Bana? So,
But there was a third word.
bara,
Bara. Okay.
bara is, create. And anytime you find bara, it's only God who is the subject that, is creating something. Bana. I need to see the vowel. I think it's bana. Is, to usually like build. Has more of that connotation. So when, the man is found low tov, not good, God builds a man, or builds an isha for the man. Asa is, do or make. So if you can make a treaty, you can make a pot, you can make food, something like that. And then there's a fourth that's in that same range, which is, yatsar, yod, sade, resh. And yatsar, make sure there's no volume, is, to form.
Can't even hear it.
So you could, when God makes man from the dust, he yatsars him, he forms him from the dust. almost like you form a clay pot. Those are kind of in that range. How you doing, Jay? Your chair is over there.
Oh. That'll give you an idea of my.
Do you want me to fetch a maidservant for it?
Thank you. I sat down in the soft, comfortable chair and went.
I get it. I get it.
You got the nicest Bibles today, though,
Oh,
for the Old Testament,
mm-hmm.
and it's really nice. It has Hebrew, English translation,
Okay.
and then the English down the side,
Yeah,
and it's in 3 volumes.
very nice. So it's like an interlinear.
Interlinear.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Very nice.
Very nice.
I tried, but I messed up. I didn't get what I was supposed to get and had to turn it back.
It's hard. Bible shopping is hard, especially if you can't put it in your hand and see.
So when I got said, Hebrew, English Hebrew translation. And
Mhm.
so I thought I had both sides, and I got it, and it was just the English translation. It didn't have verses, it didn't have, it was just this long running.
And of course you ordered 2 of them.
Oh, you got Robert Alter's version in 3 volumes.
I
Yeah.
don't know, but
I have his. I really like his translation and
reads
his
good.
notes. Yeah.
It reads good, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed reading it. I've read the first book. But I keep telling Wayne he has to get one with bigger letter.
Yeah, no, that's the challenge too, is finding one with large letters. All right.
He starts growling, and I can hear him growling and grumbling. I can say, I can tell you're studying Hebrew. He does know that word.
Yeah. That's funny.
After this last week, I would have to visit time spending.
Sure. Sure.
Been busy, huh?
Oh my goodness. I worked all day Saturday after church, most of Sunday. Yeah.
It's not good.
And I'm still about it. Well, Jason and Kelsey were out.
Yeah, they're out, so they've
So I was-
kind of,
Had extra stuff. Right. Top of things while they. And then had to work all through the weekend because we had. It's for a good reason. I spent an entire day doing nothing but for entering orders.
Wow.
Yeah, I separated them out into groupings of different orders. Most of the orders have at least 15.
It'll be nice
So
when the paycheck comes.
that's what I said, it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing, but it's just when those waves come.
Everything.
Yeah. Jason is back now, but he can't lift any of
He
the
can't,
great panels
right.
for the next 10 days. And so he is with me today, but pretty limited in what he can do.
Hmm.
Still a help. But he's wearing out as fast as I am.
I assumed he was gonna be out.
Apparently it's. Nope, they kicked him out and then they made it home. They were home Sunday. And then he was sent to work this morning.
well, shall we get started? You're into week 10. Did you think you'd make it this far?
I was hopeful.
You're hopeful?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Hopeful.
You're, I think this makes you officially 20% of the way through. I mean, think about it. You're like 1/5. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
It's crazy to think about. Yeah,
Crazy, it's crazy awesome.
yeah. So
Hey, that's what.
there you go, 20%. There you go. Excellent. So, well, we'll get going with the usual. And we'll pick on Jay since he let out that he didn't study. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that to you unless you think you know some. In which case I'm happy to do some of those.
I'm gonna be good just to be able to recognize the letters.
No worries. No worries. We'll start with, I tell you what, take the one that that's already done.
Oh, that means to guard, or a guard or a cook.
Yes, it certainly does.
Um,
So that's a tet.
yeah, I was trying to remember which one it was.
That's
So,
okay.
with the, talk underneath, so it'd be ta, and that would be the, but,
Mhm.
so with a kamatz under, so ta.
That's a het. So this is actually Bach's name, Tabach. Yep, Tabach.
It'll
So-
come to me as we go through.
No, I figure it will. So, Brent, why don't you give me the first one up here?
That was, Torah,
Hmm.
it's, nose or.
So not nose, but it is to be hot or angry. You can have
Oh,
other
okay.
things that are hara, but it oftentimes is paired with off. So if you have,
Off is done.
yeah, if you have an off hara, then you have a hot nose.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Mhm.
So that pretty much just means hot.
Yep, hot or angry when you see that. Yep. Why don't you give me the next one down here?
Yafe,
Hmm.
which was. I want to say that was beautiful.
It certainly is. Certainly is. And you can,
Beautifully done.
yes, beautifully done. And you can see the feminine form down here has the ah on it. So here's the masculine is yafe, yafa is the feminine form. If it's describing something beautiful that's feminine.
So the only change in that is the kamatz versus the, is that Segol?
Correct, correct. Yep, Sagol changes to the kamatse ending to the feminine singular ending for the adjective. Yep, very nice. Yep, good job. Let's see. Robin, did you study? No? Do you want to give it a shot?
Is that ocular migraine in my defense?
Okay, all right.
It's a little blurry, but is that
It is a cough. Yes.
he,
Mm-hmm.
he,
Ki'im, correct. Exactly. Good pronunciation there. It doesn't mean food in this case. It's except or unless. If you're a programmer or a nerd, it's like if then. Like an if then statement. So, but why don't you take this next one since you already got the English part right?
it's le,
Lechem, lechem, exactly. Exactly, exactly. And if I have a bet lechem, I would have a what? A house of bread. That's right. Excellent. Daisy, why don't you try this one here? The accent is right here. So this is where you're going to put your emphasis is on the U vowel. It's a mem. So it's meh. Mm-hmm. U. Meh. U. Because the aleph is silent. So let's put it together. Me'uma. Me'uma. No, not who. Me'uma. Exactly. Me'uma. Me'uma. What do you think a me'uma is?
I got the other one on the bottom.
Okay,
Is it? Any?
it is anything. Very nice. Very nice. Steve, why don't you try this one down here?
Matt, come,
Melaka. Very nice.
and that,
Means work. Is anybody familiar with the Hebrew word for an angel?
You told us.
You said it was like Malachi.
It's a malak. Malak. And the malak would just be spelled with a final kaf right here. So the Melech Adonai is the angel of God. So it's exactly the same spelling. But if we put the kamatz hey on the end of it, it becomes a feminine form for just work, because that's what an angel is. They're a worker, a messenger. So a melech or a melacha is work. Well, Steve, you're doing so good. Why don't you give me the next one?
my,
So that's an I vowel, meets.
uh,
So it'd be meets,
me,
meets, MITS, meets. And then
Ra.
that's
Yeah,
Rayam, meets Rayam. Meets Rayam. And what is a meets Rayam?
Egypt.
Egypt, that's right.
So
All
I'm
right.
sounding those things out by myself.
It's okay. It's all right. That's why we're here. All right, we'll grab a few more here. Wayne. See if you can get this one. I give you a hint. Hara, the anger, anger. And it's off hara.
See the word that I want to be.
So that's a mare, mare. Mare. And we learned a verb.
Cider appearance.
It is cider appearance, and we know that from the root in here, which is the resh aleph hey ra to see. So if I put a mem on the front of it, it turns it into a noun. So you're seeing a sight or appearance. So you could say the melach Adonai, something with mare, the appearance of or the sight of the angel of the Lord, something like that. Well, you did so good. I'm going to give you this one because you should remember this one as a man.
Nashi,
So it's na sa,
Sa.
nasa.
Oh, yeah, what'd she tell me?
What does NASA do?
Lift me.
Yep, that's right. NASA lifts or carries things up. That's exactly right. Carol, why don't you give me this one?
Eve,
So it'd be Evid,
David.
and the accent's here on the beginning. So it's Evid, Evid, Evid. Yep,
And it means to. Oh, it's servant or slave.
perfect. Very nice. Very nice. Why don't you give me this next one here?
That's said,
Perfect. Yatzav.
and.
Or
that's
sorry, Azav.
Azov.
Azav.
Azov,
Sorry.
right, because it
Azov.
doesn't make sense. Has to be with. Is it with?
It's not. That one's to abandon or to
Oh, yeah.
leave. Azav. He left. He abandoned. I think I brought. I forget where that was. Just talked about it in the last few weeks about, oh, it might have been in my other study reading group on Thursdays, so. All right, let's see. I'm gonna go back and pick on Daisy. Give me this one. Im, which means with. And Brent, why don't you give me the last one here?
Would it be asa or asa?
Asa,
Asa.
asa, to do or to make. Yep. Very good.
So why is the accent on the last one there if it's the same vowel?
Because you have two long vowels on this
Okay.
one. And verb forms, because this is a verb, will tend to push the accent back on it.
Okay, I see.
But a ma'asa, to put a mem in front of it, a ma'asa, which means something worked on, or be work as the noun.
So with the mom.
He's doing this work,
Yeah.
ma'asa.
If it's all right.
Mhm.
And
Then some will shorten and, but it will shift the accent forward.
I guess it kind of makes sense for a short thing. He's kind of like.
Very nice. All right. Good job. Good job. Good job. Daisy and Brent down there, the vocab hounds. On Carol too. She's,
Try.
you do. It takes a lot. It's effort, isn't it? It's a lot of effort. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on review tonight. But we'll just do this really quickly. For genders, for adjectives and nouns, can somebody tell me what the masculine ending for a masculine singular noun or adjective would be? What's the ending? That's right. There isn't. And for a feminine singular, what is the ending?
Daisy has a hand.
Nope. Feminine singular.
Oh,
Ah, did you say ah? Yep. Okay. Yep.
These are actually.
Ah. And for a masculine plural, what is it? Eam. And what does the eam look like? Nope.
no, sorry.
Well, E would be E is in the hirik or hirik yod class. So im. Well, there's a mem there. What's my first vowel? Hirik. And then what's my next, not a consonant, but part of my long vowel? Yod. And then what? Which mem? This
No.
mem
Fine.
or this mem? That one, yeah. Okay. Looks like my font got messed up there. So, oh well. And for a feminine plural, what's the form of that one? Anybody? Oat. And how do I spell an oat?
OAT.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's a whole and vav and a what?
Tough.
Tav. That's right. Oat. Yep. Very nice. And we remember the agreement on definiteness, right? Has to be singular or plural, masculine, feminine, all has to match with definiteness. Who can remind me what is the standard form of the definite article, the word the in Hebrew? Anybody? Are you just going to be a know-it-all tonight? No, go ahead. Nope, it's not just a.
There you go.
What they said, so a hey and a patak. Which one is the patak? Just the line. And then a dagesh, you said? In the next letter, that's in the wrong spot, but here, I'll put we'll put a cough out here. Something like that. Now, what happens if I don't have a cough? I have something, say like an ion, and it won't take a dagesh. What happens to the vowel? Exactly. It lengthens out to a long vowel. Exactly right. Yep. But what if my word starts with a hey? You know, that's what we're asking of the first one, but what about the second one? Can I double that hey? I can't. Why not? Nope, it's a guttural. Can't double a guttural. So what happens to the batak on that one? Nope, it's a trick question. It just stays a batak. And the doggish drops. So
It doesn't become a dominance in that case?
Nope.
With any of the gutturals?
the hay or the het.
Oh,
The hay and the het just stays a batak, doesn't take the doggish.
but the other gutturals.
But the other gutturals will change the vowel. Yep. Yep. All right, another quick question. It's a fast review for you guys. If I want to say the word and, what do I expect to find at the very beginning of the word? A vav, vav with a schwa. That's right. All right, Carol, since you're the smarty pants here, if I have an and, but it comes before something like a lamed or a mem, one of these that closes your mouths a little bit, or like say a bet. Do you remember the form of that one?
Probably would have a doggish.
It would have a dagesh, and if we do one with a dagesh in it, what does that become? Should look like a vowel.
Ooh,
Becomes that's right, becomes a shurik. It's the only time that we have a vowel that begins a word is with the conjunction and, if it's in front of what they call a bilabial, where your lips come together. So lameds, mems, bets, you'll see an oo in front of them. The bet will lose its dagesh, and so you'll have uv or or ul, just to help you kind of get through it. But the rule for me has always been, if you see a vav at the beginning of a word, it's almost always and. It's and. Let's go.
no matter which.
No matter which form. It's the only time you'll see a vowel starting a word. Because the rules don't allow you to have a vowel. It's consonant
Right.
vowel or consonant vowel consonant. But when you see that standing on its own, it just changes it to help you get through that. All right. Very good. Very, very nice. So just a quick reminder on the demonstrative pronouns. You'll see them as you come through. And remember the way Hebrew differentiates this, the ze, zot, ele, I think those are fairly straightforward. Just memorize and know them when you see them. But the who's, he's, hamas, hems, hanaz, and hens are going to sometimes create a bit of a challenge for you, simply because those also are pronouns for he, her, or she, his, and they as in feminine, masculine. So it can be a little bit confusing. You won't see it all that often. It will kind of stand out, because what'll happen is you'll learn who means he. I might have mentioned that to you. Who is he is she. You'll learn that who means he. But when you see a who standing somewhere in the phrase and it makes no sense as to why it's there, you'll be reading along and kind of figure out what it is. And then it says he, and you'll think to yourself, this doesn't make any sense. It's acting as a demonstrative pronoun, that thing. So the he can be that thing. The she can be that thing. The hem can be those things. So when it seems like when it's not acting as a subject or an object that way, it's often standing in to say over there.
And this mean like he or she as well? Like if I was talking about Robin here, could I say like, Zot, it's good, and he is bad or something?
You could, but somewhere in there, you would need something that tells you that, what is it? Some definition of this.
Right, so
As
like Robin and Zot.
Right.
If she wear hands like that.
You could do something like Haya Robin Zot. This is Robin, something like that, or even Robin Zot. This is Robin.
Oh, I see.
Mhm. Yep, because Zod has another characteristic on it, all of these do, that is important, and that is when it comes to definiteness, we have some varying levels. You can put a ha in front of a word and make it definite. You can have a proper name is definite. These pronouns that we'll learn later, the who, he, and then the second person ones, which we haven't learned yet, they're definite as well. And then you have the super definites, which are the ze, zot, ele. They are the most definite of all. So if you have ele showing up in a phrase, then you know you've got a definite object in there. And then you can start to kind of evaluate, where do I put my the, how does it relate? But usually by then, as I shared with you before, important to know the words because the author's specifically calling attention to something, but would recommend not trying to translate it into English right away. Because it can get really, that king, it can start to get really strange and you get really confused with it. So when you see the king, the king Ze, this is the king, you could render it that way. But in complicated ones, sometimes just kind of let the translation be flexible with it. As a bit of a reminder. And so I'll just kind of run through these really quick with you guys. So this is Hamelech Hazeh. Let you guys go ahead and try that. I'll say it again. You can repeat after me. Hamelech Hazeh. Yep, Hamelech Hazeh. And so this would be, because this one's definite, the Hamelech is definite with the regular form. And Hazeh, notice what they did on that. They threw a definite on top of it too. So it just simply means this king. You would just translate it as this king. So that would actually be Robin Hazeh. That would be this Robin, not that Robin.
Is this where you're talking about, they'll translate it as this king?
Exactly. Yeah. The king, this, then you're going to sit there and wrestle with it and be like Wayne and go, right. So sometimes it's easier to just kind of let the words be what they are. So yeah, go ahead, Daisy. Oh,
Thank you.
and then
Phone call.
I'll go ahead and say this one. You can repeat it. Zeh Hamelech. Zeh Hamelech. And that one is, well, would anybody like to take a shot at it? So that you're correct. The king, that's this last word.
This, the king, this one.
So this one, the king, if we just smooth it out, we need a verb in
This
there.
is-
This is the king. This is the king. And the reason we know this is ze is more definite than a ha. And when we have that difference in definiteness, we need a verb. Is, was, something like that to help us.
So the ha brings the Z down in definite.
It does. Yep. And then Hamelech Ze is actually the same thing. It's exactly the same phrase. This is the king. Word order, Hebrew doesn't care. Well, it sort of cares, but for the most part in these phrases, it really doesn't care. And I'll go ahead and say this one, Melech Ze. Go ahead and say it, Melech Ze. And a Melech Ze is, would anybody like to take a shot at Melech Ze? You had your hand up, Daisy, for the last one. Do you want to try this one? What is a Melech Ze? Let's go through this first. Gender, number, definiteness. Are they the same gender? Yep. Are they the same number? Is it singular or plural? Are they both singular or both plural? Or different? You think they're different? Well, if Melech is that singular or plural? Melech. And is Ze singular or plural? Singular. So they're both singular. What about definiteness? Is Melech definite? Doesn't have a ha on the front of it. So it's any king. All right, any king. Is Ze definite? Yes, super definite, the most definite. So if I have a difference in the level of definiteness, I need a helping verb in here. So we would start with this is a king. So we could look at Wayne and say, this is a king. Well, I mean, we could, it's possible. Yep, go ahead, Daisy.
My last name must be Biden.
Yes, but they look different. If you memorize your vowels, you will recognize what's called the te'amim, the chanting marks. And the te'amim, about 98% of the time, identify the accent, the accented word, or the accented letter. So when you see something that isn't a vowel, it's a te'amim, and wherever it shows up, it almost always tells you where the accent is. Yep. Some you just learn. Seglet nouns, tussigals, will always have a accent. Just go with the accent on the front. Worst case, push the accent to the back. So, all right, very nice. So a little bit of new data tonight, and this is actually all we're going to cover except for a little bit of reading. Yes, Bobby? Because we have a lot of old people that can't see.
Who did it for me? Because I still see it.
Is it pretty big for your young eyes? Yeah, yeah, it is.
Is this too big for you to see?
So going to introduce a concept that was a real struggle for me to wrap my head around. And this is the moment at which you will begin to potentially regret trying to do this until you get to verbs, and then you'll really regret. But by that time, you'll be so interested, you'll be able to read other stuff that you won't be able to stop, probably. You'll be like, well, I'm already 20 weeks in, might as well do the verbs and then be done with this loser at the end of the year. Constructs are somewhat irritating, but hopefully we can make this not as irritating. There's in the curriculum that I'm using, there's an entire chapter devoted to the history of how the vowels work in the language. And while it was very interesting and fascinating, and I wish I had been taught that to help recognize vowel shifts and changes, sometimes it's just easier to know your long vowels and your short vowels and understand a fairly straightforward concept in Hebrew. When the accent moves to the latter part of the word, so for instance, here in Yisrael, the accent is almost always on this last syllable. And in order to pull that off, you have to shorten the vowels that precede it so that the last part ends up picking up the accent that it needs to. And what that means is you have a lot of letters and words that precede that are part of a phrase. Oftentimes their vowels are going to reduce to shorter vowels or schwas. And when that happens, you'll notice that words will change. You might have learned, say, davar, a word, a matter, or a thing with kamatzes, but then you'll come along and see dever with seres in it and wonder to yourself, well, I learned a long form one, and here I have a shortened vowels on it. What's happening? Well, it's actually telling you something about the word in its shortened form. It's telling you that it's actually associated and related to the word that follows it. And we know that from the vowels that are here. And what we call those are constructs, construct phrases. And it's how you know the word of goes between a pair of nouns. It's how you understand, how you know that relationship works there. So we've been looking at Melech here, Melech Yisrael. This is the word for Israel. And in this form, in its shortened form, what we would know is if we know a few things about this. One, Israel, proper name. But instead of saying king is Israel, that would not make any sense, right? To have the difference between the two. we know because this is actually shorter vowels that there is a word of right in the middle of this. Now we have the king in the translation here. Does anybody want to take a stab at why we have the word the in the translation? So gender, number, definiteness. And a proper name is automatically definite. Okay, it's not one of any in Israel. It's Israel. There's only this one. And so we can say this is the king because it's the Israel, the king, but we need that helping word of in the middle of this. And the way we know that falls in here is, as we'll see coming through this little bit, is just a vowel change. And so I'm going to try to minimize the learning on this, kind of the introduction on what you need to pay attention to and what you don't. Now, there's a trick. There's a really helpful thing that Hebrew is going to do for us on helping us figure some of this out. And we'll look at that in just a moment. So when you have words that are connected or in construct with each other, then you end up with some different things in here, like, let me see if my text is on, which it is. So something like this, Amelech Eretz. Does anybody remember what Eretz is?
Earth.
Earth. All right. So it can also mean land, right? So we have gender, number, definiteness. Gender, they're both, we'll go with male in this case, even though Eretz is feminine. The number, they're both singular, right? They're both indefinite. Any earth, any land, in this case, any land, any king. So the way we would render this combination is a king of a land. So we have a king and a land, and we need to kind of have the of in the middle of it. It's a king of a land. Same thing down here. We can have more than one word in construct together until we get to the final form. Ben, anybody remember that one? Son. So we would say a son of a king of a land. And that's how we know that that comes together that way. And it's simply in these vowel forms that, and what you've been learning are what are called absolute nouns, absolute forms of the words. So when you see the form of the word, and so like devar, you learned it with patak patah. When you see dever or diber, immediately your brain should be going, wait, that's not the vowels I expect. Well, the vowels have reduced, which tells you it's in construct now with the words that are going to follow. This is for me, verbs were the hardest to memorize, the verb forms, but they were the easiest to kind of figure out what they meant. Construct forms, still to this day, sometimes you'll get these word arrangements in order that I have to really stop and think about, because construct phrases can also act as subjects or objects of verbs, and it can get somewhat complicated, especially in poetry. It's a huge pain in the butt in poetry. So you just it takes a little time to recognize how you kind of put that together. So know your long and short vowels. That's why we spent so much time on them. And you'll learn that. Now here's the good news. I told you there's good news. You only have to worry about this for masculine nouns. Only masculines. That's it. Because we're going to look at a chart here that is a familiar one. Because on the endings that we have, we've already done the plural im for an absolute noun, right? The feminine a for singular, feminine plural ot. We already know these, okay? And if you see any of these endings you know you're dealing with an absolute form of the word. But if you see this ending, and I'm going to use the word sus. Sus is a horse. So if I say suse, then I know it's horses of. So I could say suse hamelech, horses of the king. All right. You could say suse melech, horses of a king. And that a will always tell you the of is following. Always. If you have an ot, notice it's here in our absolute form, it's an ah, but here it changes to an ot, which, believe it or not, this is the historic form of the word. But an ot for feminine singular, you know that that noun is in construct with the following word. So susat hamelech would be the mare of the king. Susat melech, the mare of a king. And then the same for, notice you've got a little bit of a challenge here in that they're the same for construct and absolute, and that's because it just doesn't happen that frequently. And in this case, you're in charge of how you determine how you want to read it based on just the context that's being used. If it makes sense to have the word of, if it doesn't, you're in full control when it comes to that. So essentially the ones that we have to worry about are how we determine the difference between a masculine singular absolute and a masculine singular construct. And the only way we'll know that is by a reduction in vowels in the word that's in construct. In all other cases, you'll know by the ending. So you've spent all this time memorizing these. You get to have a few more endings that you get to memorize, but they're not too bad. They're not too bad.
So how do you say like a boy horse?
That would be sus melech, because the long vowel, the historic long vowel, never changes. So in that case, it would be context.
I thought you said it went to shorter vowel.
Historic long vowels, because as you mentioned in one of the first classes where you recognize you could leave the text, the unpointed text in place, and then just add the points and dots around it. They will never remove the long vowel vav from the word sus. They would never remove it. So sus is a rarity.
It's an exception.
It's an exception, and there are some exceptions. But a sus melech, you just have to kind of figure out by the context. Are we talking about the horse of the king, the king's horse? And honestly, at the end of the day, this is where I arrived by 90 weeks of Hebrew. Just render it in whatever way makes sense. Don't worry about this exact translation, but it is good to know when words go together that way. So the good news is that if you know im, well, then you already know an I-class vowel and a yod, right? And you know, and in this case, an E-class vowel and a yod. So you see yods out on the end of words, then chances are you're dealing with masculine plural. And if you don't have an im, well, chances are you're dealing with a construct. The other character that I covered up here, sorry, this little guy, does anyone, I've used the term for this dash looking thing in the past. Does anybody remember what I called it? You almost can remember, huh? Starts with an M. The dash. It's called a makef. Makef. It's called a makef. And I specifically put them here because I want you to remember this is the form of a word that's in construct. Sometimes you will see the words joined with a makef. And it changes the pronunciation a little bit, and we'll see that here in a second. But regardless, if you see yods at the end of the words with an im or an a, you know you're dealing with masculine plurals. We have a similarity in the vowels, the ahs and the ahs here. And you already know a tav is associated with feminine at the end of the word oat. This is just ot. So if you kind of have a feel for oats, ahs, ims, this shouldn't be too hard to pick up when you see something at the end there. And this, but yeah, this is something you'll want to just add into your memorization. And a way to do it is to look at nouns in your vocabulary and just attach it to the end of nouns. And you can use sus, a horse, for it, right? Sus, susim, susa, susot, sus, suse, susat, susot. If you can just put that ending on the back of that word and just remember it that way, and then just you have a pattern you memorize, then you can kind of work through that pattern as you're trying to remember something as you're reading. Any questions on that before we look at a couple of examples?
So if you wanted to say like King of Kings, could you say? Like. Like. King or whatever it was.
It's exactly what you would say.
So
Melech
you
Ma-
said, like, Jesus.
Melech Malchim would be King of Kings.
Oh.
So Song of Songs is Shir, Shirin, Song of Songs. Yeah. I think it's I don't remember Lord of Lords. I'd have to look that one up.
Can you say the pronunciation of construct plural and feminine plural?
So this one is a ot. Let me do this. A ot oat. A ot oat. So a couple of examples. Again, I tried to make it big enough for you guys to read. I see you struggling. I always feel bad. So our absolute form is right here, and we can see that because we have a long vowel, har. Somebody remember what a har is? I'm not sure if it's in your vocabulary. A har is a mountain. Har is a mountain. For those of you who have ever been into end times stuff, you know the word Armageddon. Well, the actual rendering of that word is Har Megod, mountain of Megod, Har. So Har is a mountain, but if I put it in construct, does anybody remember what Kodesh is? Kodesh means holy. Okay, notice how my vowel has reduced here. Har Kodesh, so mountain. Har Kodesh would be mount of like a mountain of holiness, something like that. Okay, you and I in English would say a holy mountain. That's how we would render it. All right. What the construct tells us is the two words are connected together. Har it has to go with whatever follows it. It's not going to go with anything that precedes it. So it is a way to tell word order in Hebrew. Because right now, if you've been doing any reading, you'll notice that you feel like the words are everywhere. Okay. So you pay attention to these vowel reductions. Like it's strange to have a short vowel in a singular in a noun word. It's strange to have a short vowel and not a long vowel in there. And so it just tells you they go together. So the literal would be mountain of holiness. That's the literal. Makes no sense to us in English. Holy mountain and holy mountain. Same thing down here. Now you notice there's a little bit of a difference in the ben, which means sun. We learn it in two different forms. But in this case, it is in construct with the verb that follows. Daisy, I want you to read this one for me. This is a final noon, by the way. Ben, perfect. Da. Nope, this is a dalet. So this is a consonant in this case. So it's David. Ben David. What's a David? It is David. This is David's name. So a Ben is a son, right? Ben is son. This is David. So in construct, son of David. It's exactly right. Son of David. Or you can also say David's son. Easy enough to do that. However you want to, however it best makes sense in your head, perfectly fine. But what we know is that these two go together because of the form of the verb. Here's an example of Devar, David. Here's how you've learned Devar, right? What is a Devar? Does anybody remember? Go ahead, Daisy. No, Devar. It's a word, a matter, a thing. And you notice how we have the kamatsas down here, the two long vowels. And then we come over here to this one and it's Devar, short, right? No vowel and a short vowel. And if you know your vocab, how you learned it, you will see the Devar here and go, that's a lot of short vowels. That's a no vowel and a short vowel. That seems weird. And you can just pick up from the masculine that it's in construct. So if I have a Devar or David, a word, a matter, or a thing, how would I might say that? Could be word of David, David's word. Could be a thing of David. I won't say the other one. That sounds too weird. Could be a matter. This matter of David. What are we going to do with this matter of David? That might be something an enemy would say about him, right? Whatever it might be. Word of David is probably the best, but you'll know that through context. It's the reduction in the vowels. When you see these short vowels, that's when you know this word connects to the next one. It helps you with word order as you come
It's weird
through.
that the one with the shortened vowels is like the main object.
Mhm.
You would think it'd be different, or I would think it'd be opposite.
And it's really however you want to render the translation at the end of the day, however you want to convert it in English so it makes sense for you.
Other times where like something could be an adjective or constructs, and you would know it's a construct because of the shortened vowels. And if the vowels aren't shortened, then it would be like an adjective or something.
So a construct phrase will get treated on its own, and then it may have an adjective that modifies it. So you could say in this case, Devar David Hatov. The word of David was good. And that sentence has no verb in it. We have to supplement the verb.
So like, how would you say like the good of David versus like, no, it's good. I guess yeah, it would mean the same thing, the good of David or David's good.
Mhm. So maybe what you're asking is, David is good.
No, I think just, I guess it wouldn't even matter if it was a construct or an adjective at a certain point. If you were saying like David's good went throughout the world, or the good.
I
of
see what you're
David
saying.
Went throughout or good of David.
So in that case, it'd be something like Hatuv. The vowel's going to change in tov to tuv and
Right.
become a noun. So the good, and then you would have David on
Oh,
there.
okay. Wait, tuv is a noun?
Changing the,
Oh, because it would be.
Changing the
construct, it would
vowel.
be changed.
Yeah.
So I see.
so tuv is the long, tov is the short.
I see. So if it's not changing, it's probably like a noun. If it is changing, I guess it is still a noun, but it's a construct.
Yeah. So tov is a good example because we've looked at tov a lot and it's usually just, TOV, right? But the moment you see that vowel in there change, that should be it's like recognizing that your husband got dressed in coordinated colors. You might ask yourself, what happened? What happened? Now, he probably already does that. He's probably okay, but you know what I mean? Something changes and stands out and you have to kind of pause and go, wait, did something get bigger or smaller here? And in that case, if the vowels have reduced, because you know long vowels, if the vowels have reduced, then chances are I'm in a construct relationship. And just try that. And this is the beauty of the construct relationship is it all, I don't want to say, it's hard to say in Hebrew always. You can rely on construct, absolute always ends it. So that is one thing you can rely on, is it will be a construct form. There may be 2, 3, or 4 constructs that are, this of this, of this, of this, of this. But it will always, the last word, the absolute tells you you're at the end of the construct chain. And that is that's reliable.
So weird, so you would think that the normal word would be the object that you're talking about, but it's one of the constructs you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, for us to get back to English, it becomes somewhat strange for sure. So look at this last one here, and then we'll might just do a bit of reading. I mentioned the makef, and here we have an example of a makef in use. So Devar, David, we just saw that. The David's word, a word of David, something like that. And that's pretty normal. But when we see the makef show up, and I'm not going to press this too much, but should you start listening, say you get your Hebrew Bible out, you've got it on the app or you have it out, and you start listening to a Hebrew rabbi reading the Hebrew text and you're trying to follow along, it's a good idea to do, by the way, that you can go to YouTube and find Genesis being read, slow it down, play it on half speed or 3/4 speed, and then get your Genesis out in front of you and see if you can follow along and listen to him. And what you'll find is when you get to 2 words that are connected by this makef, you'll the first, 100 times you listen to it, that's where you're going to get lost, because you will read this as 2 words and you'll hear him pronounce it as 1 word. And as soon as he does that, I can't tell you how many times he'd do that. And I'm like, and then of course he keeps going while I'm trying to figure out where he is. So when you see this makef, and I'm only sharing it with you, not because you're going to be up and, well, maybe someday you might be reading in front of people. But when you see the makef, it essentially joins this into one entire word pronounced together, which then begins to explain why we have vowel reductions in the front. So this would be Devar, David. This is Devar, David. And the accent comes here. So on this one, our accent is here, and our accent is here. Devar, David. This one is Devar, David. It's very much like a hyphen, except in this case, it's telling you the pronunciation is together. And I'm only sharing it with you because you'll see it. When you see it, the makef means you absolutely have a word in construct. There is no doubt whatsoever.
Like always denote construct, or
Always.
Does it have other purposes too, or is it just a construct?
Always denotes that these are in construct.
And it doesn't do anything else?
Nope.
That's cool.
Doesn't do
If it's
anything
there
else.
when you read, then it'll help you identify the constructs too. right?
It will absolutely help you identify the constructs. 100%. So
And you were talking about in logos, when you go to a certain, like a, what? It was, but there, in there, you see those.
the makefs.
hyphens,
Makef.
We've had it in our reading too, right?
Yep.
Whereas, is it L or something, where you're talking about this in the sentence, or like it's an identifier?
So let's see if we have it in one of these. Yeah, here we have one right here. Ma yi, let's see, ma he yi you. Sorry, it took me a minute. Ma yi you. In this one. So here we have a makef, and it tells you they're going to be together. Now, this is somewhat unusual, but still happens. The makef tells me the words are together. There is no doubt about it. In this case, it's if I have the word ma, what's ma?
What?
What? Yeah, see the mom, she remembered it. What? Ma, what? Okay. What is to be? So this one is joined to a verb. But it tells you they're together. There is no doubt these words go together.
So is that a construct?
It would be in construct with a verb.
Okay.
Mhm. Kind of unusual, but still happens. So yeah, when we're in Torah, when we're running through, you'll find them in there. See, I don't think I saw any other ones there. But yeah. So when you see them, that's what they are. They tell you that you are in construct. This thing belongs to this other one over here. They go together.
So when it's like, I forget what the word was, but it was like showing the object of the sentence, it was like et or something.
Mhm.
Remember what I'm
It's-
talking about?
Yeah, it's a very common one to be in construct.
It was et, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was like et Yaakov or something, you know?
Mhm.
So I was kind of saying like all this stuff about the object of the sentence, which is.
And
kind of almost like-
that's a great example of et being the direct object marker. Almost always again has a makaf joining to what the object is.
Hmm.
But you can get an et before a construct phrase, indicating this phrase is the object of the action
Hmm.
that's being received.
In that case, the et wouldn't have the makef, but the construct stuff would have.
It may have an et, a makaf, a word in construct, and an absolute.
Okay, but then the et would be a construct.
It, in theory, is in construct, but it's
Right.
actually acting as the direct object marker. It's telling you this is the object in
So
that
like, it
case.
might not translate well to English, but it is kind of like we're talking about this of Joseph.
Yes, exactly.
Even though we're talking like in English, you would just say Joseph, you know? But
Yep.
In
Yep.
Hebrew, it's just kind of like the object of Joseph.
Yes, the makef is helping you identify what goes with what. Otherwise, when you see words that have reduced vowels, or sometimes you just say them more quickly, devar, dever. I mean, you can kind of, it's just the short vowels. Look for the short vowels in words. Chances are you're going to find it. Otherwise, you have a cheat chart for all other forms, masculine plural, feminine singular, feminine plural. If they end in these forms, you know they're in construct. So it's just the masculines you have to pay attention to. And quite honestly, once you're at the point of reading, they will stand out at you, and they will hopefully not be the same challenge for you that they were for me to learn how to assemble these things together. Because it can start to get a little overwhelming in the text when you get some of these verses that are, I sometimes I'll hop into a verse and it's like one verse will be 5 lines on my screen, and I just think, oh, because I know there's going to be a bunch of construct phrases in here that I'm going to have to assemble together on the fly. And it took a while to learn to just read the whole thing first, because occasionally the poet, because he wants to be poetic, this is what writers do. Writers just love to be poetic. I see Robin grinning down there. And the author or the poet will put the verb at the end of the verse. And so you have to assemble these things together. And you're like, what is going on here? And you get to the end. Oh, and they rode. Oh, okay. So all of this discussion about a horse and a chariot and 5,000 people and everything else was about riding. Great. You could have told me that to begin with. But the poet wants to put a little flair in there with it. And
Everyone's like that too, where if there's a complex verb, it'll start with a verb in the normal spot. And then like the identifier of what the verb is at the very end of the sentence every time. And so you have to say the object, like the start of the verb, and then all the other stuff, and then like the little ending of the verb, like right at the end of the sentence. And
Yeah.
so as you start saying it, it could mean one thing, and then if you just add that last thing at the end, oh, it changes the whole meaning.
And Hebrew is notorious for parenthetical information in parentheses. So it might start out with, and he rode Jacob, the one who was born to Isaac, whose father was Abraham, to Haran. And by the time you get to Haran, you're like, what? I forgot what Jacob was doing. I have to go all the way back up to this verb, or they might do to Haran, and he shouted at it. It can be somewhat frustrating, but knowing how the words relate to each other in the phrases is going to help you be able to separate subjects, objects, where adjectives go. And remember, construct phrases, this won't be the last lesson on this. We'll be looking at a number of these. The construct phrases can take adjectives. A horse of the king was good. So they can, the whole phrase can be modified. That's why you need to know what words go with which along the way.
I have one last question, what's
Sure.
the dash called again, like a hasef or something?
Makef,
Maka.
makef.
Are those in the feminine plural? It's only for the masculine singular?
The-
makefs?
No, you can get a makef in fact, now I got to think about that. I'm not sure if I've seen a makef in anything other than masculine. That's a good
It
question.
might just be a masculine singular.
It might be, but I would say, I don't know if I could tell you for certain. But what I can tell you is if you see a makef,
Construct.
almost all the time expect a construct. In that case, unless you have a direct object marker, then it's just telling you what follows as the object from there. All right, well, we're kind of towards the end here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of help with some of the reading a little bit. I'm going to read. So I'll do top line, next line, third line, last line. So I'll read the top line. You guys can repeat after me. Or do you want me to do it word by word? Which would be easier for you? I was just going to read and you guys can read after me, just to kind of practice some of the pronunciation. You want me to do it word by word or phrase? Word by word. All right, we'll go with word by word then. So, Vayiru Oto Merahok. Does anybody remember what this is?
It's a separator of parts of the sentence. It's kind of
Yes.
like a place.
This would could be something like this, a semicolon, could be a comma, could be a period, something like that. It's where the Masoretes felt like the phrase had a pause. Okay. We won't learn a lot about these, but at about 35, 36 weeks, we'll learn that this little guy and this little guy, they love to lengthen vowels on you or make things change because you're supposed to hold it with some drama at that end. So it'd be merahok and the pause there, but you won't hear me read that way. Uvterem,
Moved better.
yikrav, elehem.
Like,
Sorry, let's try that one more time. Alehem. Vayit nachlu. Very nice. Oto. La ha mito. All right. And from a distance, they saw him from a distance. So this is our they, right here is the u. They saw ra'ah. Him, that's this guy right here. Him from, we know the men, right? From a rahok, from a distance. Remember I told you about the vop at the front? We would expect this form to just have this beneath it.
right.
But when it proceeds bilabials, M's, L's, B's, it's going to change to a shurik. All right, but it still means and. or but, or something like that, whatever helping conjunction you need. Yes,
What kind of but?
what kind of but
With one T.
with one T?
That kind of.
Well, I'm not so sure I believe that. Yikrav, this is another verb here, karav, means came near, right? Come near. El, to, the word to, El, and what do we notice right here, Brett? Do you recognize that form?
Oh, yeah, it's a, so it's a construct because it's a shortened vowel.
It's got a shortened vowel in here for the A. You haven't learned these, well, you kind of learned these, but you learned them as a demonstrative pronoun, hem. It means them, they. So to them is the way we would do that. But you'll begin to recognize some of those endings as you come through.
So is that kind of like a construct thing?
It's not, it's just the form of to, and then having a suffix, a pronominal, a pronoun attached to the word. So the yeet form of this verb, this is our root right here. That'll be quite a ways before we learn what this prefix means in here. But it essentially is a reciprocal. You're doing something to yourself. So you, if you had like yeet savav, you would say he was running in circles with himself. Okay. But you, there are some forms of this that you know from scripture, but we won't get into that too much. But this is the conspired, the nechal right here, conspired. So they conspired amongst themselves against him. And to do what? So to see to his, that's the, and this word changes up a little bit. This is the mot word for death. To see to his death. So just, I'm just kind of point some of those out as we go along. I don't expect you to remember, but it's kind of a way to go through some of that. I'm going to do one last one here and then we'll let you go. One that we haven't done before. Vayishma Reuven Vayatzi Lehu Miyadam Vayomer Lo Nachkenu Nafesh. Now, I think you guys have learned nefesh, soul, nefesh. Not yet? All right. Well, this is that's the word for soul, nefesh. You'll learn it that way. And remember, I told you, I just mentioned how this little guy right here, sorry, I guess I'm on mouse and not on drawing. How this little guy that indicates the end of the verse, and this one here, middle of the verse, can affect vowels and lengthen them. We have it right here. Nefesh is the word for soul or life or neck. And here it's now nafesh. It's a longer vowel in it because that's how the reader, the chanter, the cantor would do that. Nafesh. And they end it that way. So just in listening that we're at the end of the phrase. All right. So we should know this word. Somebody, this is a silent. Try it again. No, you were so close. Just take the R out. Shema. Shema. What is the Shema? To listen, to hear. Hear, O Israel. Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel. So somebody heard something. Somebody want to take a stab at who this is? Don't cheat and look down below. Reuven, yeah, it's Reuben. Reuven. Do you notice a couple of words in here? Ra'ah, he saw, ben, son. I see a son, or God has seen me and given me a son. Reuben. It's his name.
Isn't that Leah's firstborn?
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Who's the first?
And
I
some,
remember that from the Torah reading.
yes.
Yeah.
And some people say this vav here, the shurik, could be a pronominal suffix. He, something like, he saw him a son, or he saw to him a son, something along those lines. So it's an interesting name. So this one you will love someday. Just give you a heads up for months and months from now. This little Dagesh that's sitting right here in this letter tells me, believe it or not, I have a noon missing. There's actually noon in front of this. It's Nitzil is my root. Should love that. It's good times. But when you learn your vocab, what you'll discover is there are no other words that make sense that end with Sade Lamed. So when you see it, you start thinking through your brain, do I know a word Yitzal? No. Well, noons can disappear. So Nitzal, yeah, I know a Nitzal. But pretty soon you just recognize them and you just know. You just know where they are. What's a yad? Hand. And what's a yadam? What so dam is blood, but in this case our form is yad, hand. What do we know about words that end in mems? Go ahead. Yeah, you started to say something. Go with your gut. They're plural. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Good job. And do you know why this one isn't an im? Because this stinking knock right here that tells us it's the pausal form at the end of the pause, and it's going to jack up the verb. But if you know that mems on nouns probably tell you that I have a plural, you can kind of decode it and work it out, which is why we memorize those tables. So mi yadam, this is min, shortened attached form, from their hands. So we know that that's plural there. Pretty fun.
So if you just wanted to write this and you weren't like, you didn't have chanting in mind, would that be me yadim?
It would take an eval probably, not an eval.
So it would end in im normally if it weren't like at the end of this poetic structure. Interesting.
Amar, a word I've told you need to absolutely memorize. Amar, what does that one mean? That's fine. To say, it's a speaking word. It's a speaking word. And when we see Amar, we probably should start looking for where to put the quotes, because it's direct speech. Somebody is speaking. But when Reuben heard, he delivered him from their hands, Vayomer, saying, quote, this is what Reuben said, Lo nachnu nafesh. We will not, right? Strike, hikir. Yeah, you like this one? Here you go. So that little Dagesh tells me I am missing a letter. And in this case, it's a hey, because they love to disappear. And guess what's on the other end? There's another hey that disappeared. So out of the 3-letter root, the only letter I'm left with is the cough. But bear with me. These are the little things that I want to point out to you now. So as you're reading and you're like, that looks like halak. It's lock at the end. I feel like I'd want to say halak. He walked, he went to go, something like that. It probably is halak. Because these weak letters, noons and hays and lameds and yods, they disappear. They get sort of merged into the word a bit. And that's okay. That's okay.
I've been on
Because
board with everything, but I don't know about Grace.
because you know your vocabulary and you have a little bit of context along the way. What's Reuben heard? They're gonna kill him, right? They're gonna kill him. So we have Reuben coming in saying, no, something his life. So what are they not going to do? Murder him? No, we know murder is harag. Take? No, that's lakak. That's not there. What else is in here? Well, God, to strike his life, to strike his soul. So these are the words, by the way, that I failed on my test. When they put these verb forms in, I'm just sharing with you right now. They put this verb form in front of me and I'm like, I could give them the root and I could give them the form, but I couldn't always tell them exactly what it meant. They're sometimes the hardest to get memorized.
It's just the thing that's in modern Hebrew too, where they don't have the dagesh anymore, of course, but where they'll drop. So even in modern Hebrew, this is the thing.
Yep. They just know what the words are.
Are people ever being poetic with this kind of a thing where like if you drop the hey, it looks like there's another root word.
100,000%. Not only that, the scribes get confused and you get scribal errors where they may have a hey that like a hey on an end of a word that's preceding that they may shove to the first part of the next word because they have something else in mind, or they've read something before and they've gotten somewhat confused. It happens, I don't want to say all the time, but more often than you think, you get scribal errors where and then there are some cases where we're not 100% sure like what this is or what this is. Good thing is it's not in high doctrinal areas, but there are occasions where you get into a word or a phrase and some modern translators have shifted some of the consonants to say it makes more sense if this is what it was supposed to be. This might be a scribal error.
So I imagine there'd be like a psalm that would have a word like that where you're dropping noons and hays. And so then it looks like there might be another like root word there that like, it, like is a mirroring concept. Or something.
Absolutely. They may want to get some vocal alliteration, some rhyme with it. They may want to pick a word. Yeah, they will pick a word to drop a letter just to match another root in another word they want to connect you to.
Like you could have used multiple words, but you went with that one.
But
because
they
it's-
won't drop a letter just to drop one. It's the way the weak letters fall off and how they change is consistent.
Cool.
So it is consistent. And the number of words we're dealing with, if you remember, I said there's only a limited number of words that actually end in hey. There's only a limited number of words that actually begin with an aleph. The good news is they're limited. So there's not that many that you have to be aware of.
So the only really consistency of the chanting markers where things change because of the chant.
They'll jack you up a bit.
That sounds like that's the only thing where it's just like.
Yeah.
left field.
They'll jack you up a little bit. Yep. So, yep. All right, let's do vocab and then we'll send you home. Daisy, you have a question. Vayomer, lemor. Those are two words you need to memorize. Vayomer, va-yomer. He said, and lemor, lamed, aleph, mem, resh, lemor, saying. You see those two words, just expect there to be a quote that's going to begin shortly. Somebody is speaking when you see that word.
Again, said.
So vayamor and lemor, he said, or lemor is saying. So it might have something like, and the Lord spoke saying, comma, and in that case, and the Lord spoke saying would be lemor.
Hopefully you wouldn't have the parentheses, you know, after that, like it just
Right.
said this Sunday.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, on those slides in here. Yeah, here's another one. Where's our lemor? So amar right here. Va amar nu. So this is they said. Okay, don't worry about that form, but the amar word is right here. And we will say, gotta look at my verb form. We will say, quote, an animal of Ra'ah, Aklah ate him. An evil animal, not just a bad animal, right? An evil animal ate him. That's the quote. But here's your Amar word preceding the quote.
Yeah.
An animal of evil ate him. Can you imagine coming back to your dad with a bloody jacket? An evil animal or a bad animal ate him. This is a guy who shepherded his flocks while his brother, I mean, what are the odds a shepherd who shepherded often on his own was going to get eaten by an animal? Not very good, but an evil animal? Oh, what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do?
Don't give Daisy any.
Right? Exactly. And it has a funny, interesting illusion because similar to Cain, who was told, hey, something's crouching at your door. Sin is crouching at your door, man. Like crouching like an animal. Anyway. All right, I could make these as large. I might start to make these into 3, but we'll just 3 pages so we can raise them. Ehad means the number 1. Cardinal 1, quantity 1. Not ordinal first, second, third, but number 1. That I saw your squinch. Do you know the difference? Okay, so a whole number, like I have a quantity of 1 remote. Okay. Rashit, this is my first remote. So first is ordinal or in order. Yep. Ahat means 1 but feminine. Notice the tav now on the end. Would this be in construct or absolute? Okay, you just learned it tonight. This would be a construct form of 1. 1 of, say, you could say ahat tzon, 1 of the flock. Okay.
I thought the construct was the second one in the masculine.
So this you see what happens with the vowels. This is your absolute. You have a long vowel. Your construct has 2 shorts. So ahad, ehad, ahad. And so yeah, the vowels drop into short vowels, and that puts it in construct. So if we had
The
a,
feminine one is the
um,
construct as well.
you could say I'm trying to think of 1 of for a masculine. You could do a source, a sus. You could say ahad susim, 1 of echad hasusim, 1 of the horses. Ar baim. Try that one more time. Ar baim. Perfect. That's 40. Notice our suffix, the im. You want to take a guess of what 4 is going to be? You're really close. Arba. Arba is going to be 4. Put the im on 40.
Wait, what did we just say?
Otter, so otter ba'im. Otter ba'im 40. Hamishi, hamishi. You try that one more time. Hamishi. So here's an ordered 5th. Could be the 5th thing. We're going to learn that hamesh is 5. So all we're doing is just changing some of the vowels around to change the meaning of it a little bit. Hamishim, 50. So Hamesh 5, Hamishim 50. Me'ah, it's 100. May I have 100, please? Asiri,
City,
Asiri.
a city.
This is a 10th. So the tithe is an asiri. It's a 10th. Now, any guesses on what 10 would be? Go ahead. You were close. Looking for 3 root letters. So asar is 10. 10. It's all the same root. They just play on the forms. That's all. Kana, to buy or acquire something. Kana. So Wayne, back in the day, you would say, I'm gonna kana me an isha, gonna acquire me a wife.
But you're thinking of buy one. It's like, what
Well,
do
you-
you, better one?
You end up paying for them anyway.
Oh, that's oats.
That's right. There you go. Oh, pay for the notes. So this is sin sar. Sorry, just letting you know it's a sin. So sar, a prince or a chief. Shachav means to lie. He lied down or he lay down. Hamesh, that's your 5. Hamesh is 5. And Elef,
Hello,
Elef. It's a segalet, so that's in the beginning. Elef means 1,000. Can also mean I don't know if let me change the vowels here a little bit and say I had a patak and a patak. It would be Aleph, which is your first letter of your alphabet. That's your spelling for it. Aleph. Which means chief or head or ox, something like that. But change the vowels a little bit and it means 1,000. It can also mean like the head of a clan. This is what makes the numbers in numbers really difficult because you have a bunch of elephs. And what you don't know is, are these tribal leaders or are these 1,000? If they're tribal leaders, you can cut the numbers. You can take all those millions and just drop a 0. Like that. And now you have a reasonable number of Israelites moving through the land. You have hundreds of thousands versus millions. And so the question becomes, is it Aleph? Is it an Aleph? Is it a what? Could be tribal leader.
Assuming in the Hebrew Bible it is Ella, but then that might just be what the Masoretes inferred into it or something.
What the Masoretes might have written, because the Greek Bible has a whole different set of numbers. Tends to agree more with hundreds of thousands. Yep. Sham, there, which simply means Sham. Where is it? Sham. Sham. Arba, 4, and tafas, tafas, to lay hold of or to seize, to grab something. So it's the toughest grab and hold and seize, tafas. Don't let those little scenes trick you. Those are S's there. All right, questions on the vocab? Yeah, this is a fun one. When we get into the Torah reading to that section.
So all those, the dates of all of the people and their ages could also be part of this.
We don't have thousands showing up in their ages. Nobody lives over 1,000 years, over 999. But I still think there are some things going on with the numbers. There's some,
A lot of discrepancies.
well, a strange thing is that you'll get into these numbers that where you get a whole list that are all divisible by 5 or 25. And then you start asking yourself, what are the odds of that? You know, you can start doing some math on the numbers and come up with some pretty interesting things. But when you start getting to the counting of people and how many are leaving, and you see the elephs, or here's another one, my favorite, Ravava, which means tens of thousands. Well, Rav means much or many. Ravavav just means more than I can count. And we come along and say, well, that's tens of thousands. And it makes sense because you want when the angels appear, when what is it, Elijah opens the eyes of the people around him to see all the angels. Well, there's Ravavas, there's elephs of Ravavas, there's tens of thousands of hundreds of that. So you want that to be a big number. But then at the same time, you think to yourself, how many angels does it take to defeat humans? Does it really have to be that many? So, you know, what are we reading and what are we not? Ask questions like that. Now, here's the good news with you guys. Coming into like, yeah, you know, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, some of those things, you'll be at a point where you can read this in Torah. You may still be figuring out what it means, but you'll have no problem seeing it and probably recognizing some of the roots as you come through. So the more you're in here and the more you're in Torah, the more you're going to start to see in the Hebrew on the other side and go, what's that over there? Yeah, exactly. So, all right, that's it. We're done with that. Kept you forever. Yeah, did you just yeah me?